Hey, what's going on, my friends? How are you? Hiker Dave NE here. I did a little digging on the interwebs on the Google machine, and I wanted to compile some data on sightings up here in New Hampshire, and it really didn't take me long. It took me about a half an hour to compile a couple of stories of some sightings up here in New Hampshire as recent as the past few years, and I want to share them with you. Cue the intro. So I had a great guy who follows my channel, and we've been in touch and talking with each other and stuff. And he asked me, Dave, is there anything I can do to help? Because, as far as me making the videos, editing the videos, which the quality of my videos is not all that fantastic, but there is editing involved. And between that, working stuff that just happens, he asked me, what can I do? What can I help you with? So I asked him to do me a favor, try to get some information on sightings in New Hampshire. For instance, the Freedom of Information Act in the area, to try to not uncover, but get some info that I ordinarily really honestly don't have the time to get into. He did that, got back in touch with me. He said, there's really nothing that they're going to release as far as, say, sightings from park rangers and stuff like that, and state forests and national forests in the area. There's no information to be had. Nothing is documented, apparently. And so, not for lack of trying, this guy, he tried and really just kind of hit a stone wall. So I decided to, on my own, I'm going to look up some stuff, and here's a few things that I had found, and it was really simple to do, a very simple Google search. And so here's some sightings in my area the past 5 years or so, maybe dating back a little further, but the first one that I came up with was of no surprise to me. This came up pretty quick. Oh, there's my little chipmunk buddy. I got to put some more peanuts out for him. This is from the Concord Monitor, Concord, New Hampshire, and it's from this team searching for Bigfoot. They're based out of California, and the team leader is none other than Tom Biscardi. This is the guy that was caught hoaxing this elaborate story that he bought a deceased Bigfoot corpse from somebody for $50,000. And I start with this story because this was the first thing that came up. This was right the what do you call that? The search whatevers, right? This was top of the list. Number one is a fake story about Bigfoot. This guy claimed that he paid $50,000 for a frozen Bigfoot body, and come to find out it was just stuffed. It was a rubber suit stuffed with like animal guts. From different animals and stuff like that. So it would look and smell real. And he claims he didn't know that it was fake. Whatever. All right. And this wasn't his first brush with being not telling the truth. What's his name? Tom Biscardi. So I thought it was interesting that right on the top of the search engine or the search list is a fake story of Bigfoot. Why wouldn't it be, right? So here's one I found. So this sighting happened in Deering, New Hampshire, not all that far from me. A Mr. Scott Luca says, at first, this was his first encounter. He was 12 years old when he first saw Bigfoot in a farmer's field in Bradford, which is really, as far as New Hampshire goes, it's right down the street. In a farmer's field in Bradford. And apparently it had ripped the head off of a 3,000-pound bull on the farm. And when it was seen doing this, apparently, it just kind of nonchalantly walked away when him and family members approached to find out what the heck was going on. And again, now, this same guy, this Scott Luca, says that in 2014, on his property in Deering, he found a large footprint that right on his property. And so he decided to leave a pizza box with 3 slices of pizza on a stump in the woods, in the woods nearby. The box was closed with 3 slices of pizza just placed on it. And he kind of assumed that only an animal with dexterity would be able to open the box and get the pizza. I'm not sure. I think any animal could rip the box open. But anyways, checking on it 2 days later, it appeared undisturbed. When he first came up to the box, it looked like it was never touched. But as he opened it, what he found inside the box, instead of the 3 slices of pizza, which were gone, he found 3 rocks shaped triangular like a slice of pizza. Very weird. Then again, that Christmas of 2014, his brother heard a commotion in the barn going on. All the animals were freaking out. And as he approached the barn to investigate, he said, he heard, quote, I heard a low, guttural growl. And suddenly, what he said, a Bigfoot, suddenly took off into the woods away from the barn. Here's another story. A couple, this was in North Conway. This was where a couple in North Conway had spotted a Bigfoot as they were walking on their property. They were taking a short nature hike, and they both spotted a Bigfoot. It was small in nature, about 6 feet or so. So the husband turned after, 10 seconds of staring at this thing, wondering what this hairy person is doing on their property. He turned to ask his wife, are you seeing what I'm seeing? She was already hightailing it, booking it back to the house. So he got all freaked out. He was scared as well. He booked it, kicking it back to his own home, where he talked to his wife. And it turns out she saw what he saw, but she also observed on the trail a little bit further down on the right was a massive Bigfoot, 8 feet or so. And he didn't even realize was there until he spoke to his wife. Here's another story, Salem, New Hampshire, October 26, 2016, Canopy Lake Park, Bigfoot sighting. In the woods surrounding Canopy Lake Park, it was a festival called Scream Fest. This was actually in Rockingham County, near Nottingham, in the Pawtuckaway State Park, again near Nottingham. So this guy's walking with his 2 Bernese mountain dogs on a trail. And on his return back down the mountain, they were headed out. And close to the bottom, on these ice-covered trails, he saw something about 30 yards ahead of him. And it moved from left to right, perpendicular to the trail. And he said he had a clear line of sight here. It was wintertime, and there was very little shrubbery and foliage to get in his way, and he had a clear line of sight. He said that his dogs stopped dead in their tracks, and he told the dogs, don't worry, it's just a hiker. He says whatever it was bipedal, much bigger than me, and moving at a very fast pace. When he arrived at the spot where he saw it, there was nothing there, nothing behind, nothing down and to my right, and I heard no sounds at all. He says, I ran ahead, thinking maybe it was a runner, but I saw nothing for 100 yards of a clear line of sight. Quote, I am a marathon runner and an athlete myself, and no human could have moved that fast over that terrain so as to elude my sight. That was either a ghost, a superhuman athlete, or a Bigfoot. I can't rationalize what I saw, unquote. Pretty interesting story. That was in 2016. I've got a couple of people that I talked to up here in June. In July, mid-July or so of this year, 2019. I interviewed a park employee in July of this year at Pillsbury State Forest, which is near Washington, New Hampshire, not far from me at all. Probably a half an hour ride, which is really close if you ask anybody that lives in New Hampshire. So I asked her, after asking about the trail systems, she was telling me about some of the tall peaks in the area, and that it was no problem to stealth camp up in this area. You didn't need a campsite. There were campsites there, but you didn't necessarily need a campsite to camp. It was allowed in this area, which is actually, I'm finding, pretty common up here, that they do allow you to stealth camp, which is just find a spot, set up a tent. Of course, carry in, carry out, leave no trace and all that junk, right? It's not junk. It's very important, actually, but that's common up here. There's a lot of areas where you can do that. So I ended up asking her, right before I left, everybody was gone. There was nobody. There was like a building for like a ranger, or a park ranger building, right when you come off the road and into the state forest. It's an information building or a welcoming building. And she had come out and was just kind of sitting there, and I was fiddling with whatever I was doing, getting ready to leave. I said, can I ask you something? She was probably 30-something years old, maybe early 40s. And I asked her straight out, how long have you been working here? She said almost 18 years. And of course I said, have you ever seen anything odd in your years working here? And she had mentioned too, I've camped here, I've hiked here, and she was telling me how awesome the area is. And she said no, but with an inquisitive kind of look. And I said, I'm specifically speaking of Bigfoot. Have you ever seen a Bigfoot? I just flat out said it, and she didn't laugh or have any kind of other reaction other than no, I've never seen one. She said, but she had 2 instances where at night she was doing some stuff on the computer in that building, that something was slapping the side of the cabin. Or it's not quite a cabin, it might as well be. It's not a big building, 1 floor with a main entrance, and then there's like an office in the back. So it's not a huge area, probably the size of my barn, that's about it, 1-story building. And she said something whacked the side of the building to the back. There's no windows in the back. And a couple of times. And she said she was armed. She had a sidearm. It was I don't want to say late at night, but it was sundown. Nobody was there. And she did not leave. And she said it happened again about 2 summers or did she say 2 seasons? I don't remember. But it happened to her on another occasion. And again, same thing. Something whacked the side of the building a couple of times. She said she was scared out of her wits and would not go outside the building. And that was her story. She said she's never seen one, but has heard on many occasions at night, working late, some really strange sounds, strange howls and yells and stuff like that, that she just really equates it to, it's New Hampshire in the mountains. It's got to be just some kind of animal. So this next one is from Fox Forest in Hillsborough, which is really can be considered right down the street from me. It's really not far. I spoke to another park employee. It's a state forest, and I did the same thing kind of, and this is kind of my MO. I'll go to an area to hike, and I'll go right for the map that's out front. It sits out front right at a trailhead or in the parking lot that describes the area that you're about to go explore. And they'll often have what looks like a little mailbox thing with a lid, and you reach in and it says maps right on it. I always do that. I always grab a map before I go hiking in any of these state forests or state parks anywhere, not just in New Hampshire. It's common. It's what I do. And I wanted to talk to somebody about the area because I saw a lot of posts about black bear. And so it was a house. It was a big old colonial, old house. It was large, but there was a sign out front that said office, little hanging plaque that said office that pointed to the door of the house. A side door along a porch had like a big farmer's porch on the front. I didn't see anybody around. I was the only vehicle in the parking lot. I said, well, let me give it a shot. I want to talk to somebody about the area. I'd never been here. Well, I ended up speaking. A woman answered the door. And again, she was probably same thing, right around mid-30s, late 30s. And we talked a little bit about the bear. She said, be careful about the one that limps. She's like, there's plenty of them around. And so I eventually, after speaking with her for about 10 minutes, I always got to work up in my head, at what point do I spring this on a person? Have you ever seen Bigfoot, right? So I figured the time was now. She was not busy. She seemed to just be fine with the conversation and talking with me. And I asked her about Bigfoot, flat out. She said that she's heard many strange things at night near her home. In her home, she lives there. She was talking about it like, I've heard things up from upstairs out the window, And she said that she's heard crazy things, screams, howls. She also said about hearing large tree breaks, like somebody was out collecting firewood and just hanging off trees and snapping huge limbs. She just figured it was a bear crashing through the woods. And of course it could have been. And she said, but other than that, she said, I have an employee that works for me. He's 20-something, 25, 27 years old. And he was out marking the trail system. There's vast trails. There's trails that were across the street that you'd hike. I made a video out there that day. There's trails out behind this particular house or whatever kind of building we want to call this. Anyways, you get my point. And he was out marking trails one day. And he was on what she described, I guess it was like one of those John Deere Gators, 6-wheeled vehicle. And he was out there with a bucket of paint and a paintbrush, marking, refreshing all the trailblazers that go along. If you're not familiar with hiking, you carry a map, and to look up on the trail, there would be a thick black kind of rectangle square, and then you move on down the trail and you look for the next one, and that way you know you're on the right trail. Different colors denote different trails, and different positions of these rectangles tell you take a left, take a right, go straight. Well, this kid came back one day, freaking out, breathing all heavy. She said she had to tell him to slow down. What's going on? He said, well, I was out there painting one of these rectangles on the tree, refreshing it, and I spotted a huge hairy man crossing the trail ahead of me. So he returned, freaking out, and he left the paintbrush in the bucket of paint on the ground next to the tree, and he told her, I'm not going back to get that. I'll go any other trail you want. I'm not going down that trail. That was just a couple of stories that I have heard since I've been up here. But that's not the end of it. I mean, that's something I plan to compile more firsthand accounts up here if I can, to strike up the conversation up here, to just ask somebody about Bigfoot is a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. The subject of Sasquatch up here is really, it's not a taboo thing. It's there's another a friend of my niece, younger girl, told me some very interesting stories about her property growing up where she lived in New Hampshire. And I'm not going to relate that story. I want to actually see if I can get her on the channel to try to give a firsthand account of it, instead of me spouting off what it is that this is what she said to me. I'd much rather have the person that had the sighting on multiple occasions and have her tell her story, right? So on kind of a different note, side note, my last video, I got some really good feedback on that. A lot of people very, very supportive, telling me, Dave, we love your videos, love watching your videos. Whatever you're doing, it's fine. And I do honestly appreciate that. That's awesome. I even was talking with Big Brother Bob, and he's like, Dave, that was a good video. And, you know, he knows what my situation has been the past few months and just trying to get settled here up here. And he's like, you know, do what you feel you want to do. Don't let anybody dictate how you make your videos or your content. And sometimes, right, you have to take a step back and look at what you're doing. And that's what I did. And I wanted to, you know, I was worried about boring you guys, about just having boring content. And I had a comment from a gentleman. Oh, I forget. You know what? I'm going to find it right now so I just want to give credit where credit is due. So, you know, I generally try to read every comment. Sometimes I'll make a video and wake up and I've got 30 new comments, and I will try to read every comment. It gets more difficult the more subscribers and stuff. But anyways, that's no excuse. I try to read every one of them, and a lot of them are very, very much appreciated. This one in particular really caught my eye because at first I wasn't sure where this comment was headed, and I was pleasantly surprised. So I got a comment from Stanley Krim. Thank you, Stanley, for your comment. Why watch Hiker Dave? Character development. Not so much what he discovers, but how he reacts to it and what he thinks about it and what catches his attention. And his intended honesty, not overstating, salutary. Plus the tension of doing it at all. What happens if he does find one? What then? Disappointment and not getting anywhere? Who's the Bigfoot researcher who solved it? Let me know, because they didn't tell me. I like the hint at the motorcycle. It's not a motorcycle channel, but it's added color. And it's a Harley Davidson. That's a bummer. They don't go, can't run, and won't stop. Other than that, that's a great bike. Women love them. Nonetheless, character development. Big Hiker Dave waving at people from his Harley is fine. That works. What's Hiker Dave's day job? He wants to know. That'd help. A little hint or something. Stay safe, carry generous protection, but keep on keeping on. I almost forgot. Man, it's raining like a banshee. We got big storms coming. I'm very excited. I love big thunderstorms. It's one of those shelter-in-place storms that are coming. Anyways, the question on what I do for a day job. Gonna let you all in. Some of you already know this, but I'll tell you guys now. I am an iron worker. I'm a steel worker out of Local 7, Boston, Massachusetts. I build bridges, schools, stadiums, condominiums, parking garages. I think I already said that. High rises, stuff like that. Iron worker. It's an awesome trade. 3rd generation. There you have it. That's what I do for a living. Now, that comment, it's kind of an example of a lot of the comments that I got on this video, and not just this video, on plenty of others. The support and the backing I get from you guys is awesome. And I never expected this when I first started this channel, how much I would enjoy the feedback. I can't comment on every comment and reply, but I read every comment and appreciate you guys so much. I've gotten negative comments, and I'll thank the person. Hey, thanks, you know what I mean? And say, thank you for your couch comment. I appreciate it. And I'm not going to fight back and forth with people. I'm not going to go tell someone to go crap in their hat because they left a nasty comment. Whatever. I had one gentleman that left numerous pretty crappy comments on my videos about a year ago. And the way I responded to this guy, it actually turned him. And I ended up getting replies going, hey, I'm just messing with you, man. I really do like your channel. And, keep doing what you're doing. So sometimes people, they're trolling for a reaction. And if you don't give them the reaction that they're expecting, sometimes it can, the tables can be turned, and all of a sudden, this is a gentleman that I speak to all the time in the comments. Great guy. So, and thank you again, Mr. Stanley Krim. I appreciate that. I appreciate it. You know, it maybe only took you, 10 minutes to do it, but you took the time out of your day, not only to watch the video, but to comment on the video and to give me some positive feedback that actually it helps. I really enjoy that. And thank you to everybody with all your positive stuff. Much appreciated. I will definitely see you guys on the next one.